Last half hour of the show. And we're going to no dilly, no dally, because we got plenty to talk about. A long way to go and a short time to get there. We're westbound and down. Just watch Old Bandit run. That's a Jerry Reed reference for a 1975 movie, Smokey and the Bandit. Go watch it. It's a good movie. Okay. For this one, we know it was a late night because he look, the man's not even wearing a hat. That's how late it was last night for our buddy Nico Moreno. And as we bring you in, you're not even wearing a hat. You look like it's like you're rolling on like your second cup of coffee and you're trying to get everything squared away. How many cups in are you?
Yep, this is actually cup number 2 right here with the Juan Valdez cup right there. Just getting it started, man. But happy to be here. Happy to be on with my SDH Familia. Just a late night for sure, man. I'm trying to not use so much hats, man, because somebody told me that it was going to turn me bald and all this stuff. So I was like, the more hats you use. So now I'm freaking out. So now I'm just a lot of hair, I'm going to try to get cut up a little bit more often just so I could show the hair a little more, man.
All right, and there's nothing wrong with flashing the lettuce. We know how it is showing the flow. I'm right there with you, because I will I legitimately will wear a hat once, and then put it off to the side and have it. If I want to go back and wear it again later on, but most of the time now I buy a hat to buy a hat as an experience, and then I put it in the stacks after wearing it once and bending the rim and everything to where it's all lined up and good to go. So I trust me, I know of what you speak when it comes to wearing the hats and all of the hazards therein. All right. The reason it was a late night for you, and we mentioned that you broke the news about La Máquina and Cruz Azul leaving a lucky 7 home that included Yorgos Giacomakis for those here on the eastern side of the Mississippi. 7 players left behind. Coach was confident. Ended up a goalless draw in leg 1. What are some of your takeaways from Cruz Azul and Seattle late last night on the
Yeah, man, there was a lot to take in. Look, first of all, I got to start off with it. It does feel like this was a missed opportunity for Seattle to make the home field advantage and the actual reality that you were facing a diminished, diluted Cruz Azul squad. And that's plain and simple, right? I understand why Brian didn't necessarily acknowledge that, why as a coach you need to make sure that you keep your team with the positive attitude. And he basically said, look, that's a team that we had to play with. And they did have a good game. I thought that there were moments where Seattle was able to not just inflict their game plan, but they had a bunch of opportunities, man. And I honestly hate to be the guy that brings this up, but I gotta address the big fat grave green elephant in the room, and is that people and in general senses, you begin to feel like here we go again with the issues of 2024. We can't score, we can't finish games. There's issues with Jordan Morris finishing because those opportunities that came about yesterday, man, Jordan has to put those away, man. And I understand that soccer is a difficult sport and being a striker is something that you really have to master. And he's been doing so great at it. He really has developed so much as a 9, as a striker. But yesterday, man, Obed Vargas slips him through with the perfect ball. He takes a little too long, or way too long, if I may be honest. He gives Kevin Mier the ability to just cut his angle. He's unable to take the shot off. And in the second half, he has another opportunity where I feel like he kind of takes away his own angle with the direction of his body, and then he puts a shot that ends up on the post, but it should have been put away. So I understand why people are frustrated with those moments, with those situations. Nuhu also had a very good, difficult header that could have gone in. But when you have a team like Cruz Azul that's missing so many key components, their 2 best strikers, their top end wing back, midfielders, a center back, and you're still unable to go away with at least one goal, that's where I have the problem. And that's why I feel like an opportunity was missed. I thought Pedro de la Vega had a good game. I am really not sure if his goal that was um, taken back because of a offside was really an offside there. The lines are very thin. The margin is very right there, and I feel bad for the kid. I feel bad for the Sounders because it was a great moment that could have put this team up 1-0 in the second half, changes everything that I'm saying at this particular moment. But let's go back to reality. That's what happened. Seattle was unable to come away with the result, and now you're gonna play at Estadio Universitario with a full squad for Cruz Azul, with 7 rested players. It just doesn't look great for Seattle. I will say this though, and I'll be quiet because I'm going off way too long.
Yeah.
It is good that Seattle, and looking at the big picture in CONCACAF's Cup for MLS teams, regardless of the 0-0 and the missed opportunity, they probably put themselves in the best position compared to other teams in MLS because they did not give an away goal. Keeping that 0-0 is key, is important. Something that other teams in MLS weren't able to do.
Yep, and one of those was, and I'm kind of flipping the idea here, but one of those was the visit to Herediano, where LAG couldn't take advantage of what was going on there. Herediano gets a goal in the second half. That's all they needed, 1-0, and LAG just looked, I don't know, powerless, neutralized, whatever word you want to use. They did not look like the LAG, and this is the third loss in a row in all competitions for LAG. They have stumbled out of the blocks here, and they stumble out of the blocks, I think, in a situation that they, like you said about Seattle at home, should have taken advantage of on the road going up against Herediano last night.
They look like a dull knife. That's what the LA Galaxy look like. They look like a dull knife. It. I know it's a knife. I know that it's scary, but it's dull. There's literally nothing there. It's crazy because you're absolutely right. I mean, in this one, the opportunities were not great. They did create chances. They had moments, but they just did not look like a team that should be dominating this Herediano team, right? I mean, I have my dad who doesn't follow MLS as much as he should be with what I do as a job, but he calls me and he's like, when did Marcus Royce is he in the Galaxy? I say, yeah, he's playing Herediano. That's crazy. I never thought I'd see that. I said, me neither, Dad. But that's what you had, right? You had all these players that are so good but I thought Christian Ramirez was ineffective. I thought that yesterday, even when he came on, Fagundes was unable to do what he typically does. He gets a chance where he could put a perfect ball in, like in the 84th minute, where they're already down a goal, when Herediano seemed to kind of turn up the heat on the LA Galaxy and actually pinned him back, and we're creating consistent chances. And Fagundes tries to take a first touch cross with the outside of his foot, kind of three-fingered to cross it back in, and it's a complete miss. Is an easy ball for the goalkeeper. Why not take that touch? Why in a moment in time where you're down 1-0, you know the importance of the game, you're going to take a touch like that? And that's what those little moments all around this game that I just couldn't understand why they looked so out of sync. And Herediano, good job absorbing pressure, doing what they do best, which is being physical, taking time, gamemanship every single time. Ball to the goalkeeper, he's going to come up, he's going to fall to the ground, he's going to take a couple of minutes, he's going to take a couple of seconds. Honestly, Herediano did a good job at keeping this LA team off. And there was some moments where he got chippy, where there was bunch ups, and I think Herediano just played their game, and the LA Galaxy looked like a team in trouble in 2025.
No doubt about it. All right, I'm going to go grab a visual aid. So I'm going to be like off camera for 5 seconds because you were mentioning what you thought about LAG's attack, and I have a visual aid to help folks out. So hang on just a second.
I absolutely love it. We're gonna go with absolute visuals today. That is quality TV there, people. If you're not entertained, then I don't know what you want. There it is.
I found it. Okay. So since I'm in a hotel room doing basketball championships for high school this week, and thank you for filibustering for 5 seconds, by the way. Um, you have to make that choice. Are you going to bring in your own food and have your own food in the hotel room for the week, or are you going to like order out and do Grubhub or whatever? I made the choice to bring an entire refrigerator of drinks. So I have Celsius here, I have Kickstart here, I have breakfast here, I have snacks here. So
Ooh.
having had stuff, well, and besides, because once I leave the hotel, I can't eat for about 10 hours because it's live TV and I can't stop because I'm doing everything and I really don't have time for a bathroom break. So I brought breakfast, here to the hotel. I have here in my hand a visual representation of what you think LAG's attack is.
That is accurate.
The
That
plastic, the
is
plastic
accurate.
knife that you have with your spork and your spoon or your plastic fork where you have one of the tongs on the fork snap instantly. Like this thing, when you try to cut breakfast, like when you're trying to cut breakfast Danish, literally, this is what this knife is. But it's the only knife that I have. It is plastic, it is wavy, and it is artificial. So this is the LAG offense until further notice. You know what? I honestly think if they got rid of those purple unis, that might be the problem. I thought, why are you in those purple unis, man? I mean, that to me is one of the larger issues. But yeah, toothless right now. They're not getting anything offensively. And you got to see Mati Bogish from LAFC now with Cruz Azul last night. The other results, Messi and friends are playing tonight. They should get the Duke. Chivas 1-0 over Guadalajara. Vancouver once again proving BC Place is a very tough place to play. Monterrey on the draw at a plus 238. And, that was an opportunity. But once again, Monterrey gets the road goal and they go back home with a 1-1 draw.
Which is same to happen in Cincinnati against Tigres, where they were unable to make it count at home, and they started with the lead. And I thought that Evander had a decent game, not a great game. He comes off with a knock. I thought that, and this was surprising to me, that the technical abilities of Denke were really off that game. First touch, way too heavy. A couple of times he misses a shot in front of goal with no goalkeeper. Yes, there were two defenders in front of him, but he misses that. There were at least 5-6 opportunities where I thought a player of his caliber should have been able to control the ball better and created a better opportunity. So Cincinnati also in a bad position in a moment where I thought they could have put Tigres, in a bad position by going home with a 1-0 lead, and they didn't. So I thought Vancouver, I thought Cincinnati, and of course the Galaxy, none of them really were able to make that first leg count. And now all the MLS teams are kind of in a bad position. Seattle, ironically enough, they are the ones that are probably in the best position because of that away goal, right? If you go 1-1 at Estadio Universitario, that puts you through. If you're able to just score, you put obviously the pressure on Cruz Azul. The Jesus Ferreira thing still kind of weird to me. Like, and maybe he shouldn't be, because we had this discussion about Jesus Ferreira and where he fits, and the odd man out was either going to be him or Pedro. But man, there's got to be a way to put all your best players on the field for Seattle, and it hasn't happened. So let's see if it happens against Cruz Azul in Mexico in a game that is do or die for Seattle.
No doubt. All right. So I have kind of a developing story before we get into Major League Soccer, and I just want your quick thought before we head into week 2, heading into week 3. Paul McInnes over at The Guardian posted this story 8 minutes ago. And we were talking about, in hour number 1, we were talking about Club World Cup now being worth a bill for all of the clubs. If you get a draw, it's $1 million. If you get a win, it's $2 million. Marca had the numbers released where a team like Real Madrid, with all the appearance guarantees and everything, if Real Madrid won the Club World Cup this year, they'd clear $138 million. But it looks like right now it's like $1 million if you draw. So if you finish 1-0-1 in your group or whatever, you leave with $3 million. I don't know how much that covers your bills or everything, or unless they're covered. But that got me into the discussion about Women's World Cup and Women's Club World Cup and all those kinds of things. Paul McInnes at The Guardian 8 minutes ago, or actually 9. FIFA is to consider a proposal to expand the 2030 Men's World Cup to 64 teams, an adjustment that would mean more than 1/4 of its 211 member associations would take part. The idea was raised at a meeting of the FIFA Council on Wednesday as part of any other business, according to reporting in the New York Times. Delegate was Ignacio Alonso, the president of the Uruguayan Football Association. Uruguay will be one of 3 South American countries to host a centenary celebration match in 2030. FIFA's president, Gianni Infantino, agreed to explore the idea further. So FIFA, it's like, yeah, we have a duty to explore these kinds of things. But Ignacio Alonso, president of the Uruguayan FA, brings forth a proposal for the 2030 World Cup to go to 64 teams in the World Cup, in the grandest stage of them all. 64 teams in 2030, a proposal brought to the table. I don't think it flies, but this is a natural extension of where we've been, regardless of what postseason tournament we're talking about or what world tournament we're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, they have just added teams, right, for this upcoming one.
Yeah.
Look, to me, and I hate to say this because I understand the sentiment of everybody, every country should get a chance to have their country be represented.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality for me is that you're diluting the importance of it. Getting to a World Cup has always been difficult. It should mean that much. Panama, when Roman Torres puts them through finally to a World Cup, that moment will never be taken away from anybody in that country because it was difficult. The moments when I remember as a kid when Colombia wouldn't make it to the World Cup was awful. I remember '94 when Colombia was at the U.S. World Cup, and it was amazing and it was wonderful. And then a couple of times after that, we just didn't make it. After France, we didn't make it. So those moments should happen. I feel like it shouldn't be diluted to 64 teams. The product gets diluted, the soccer gets diluted, the experience, I don't like it. I see it as a money grab, unfortunately. More countries, more votes, all of these things that honestly are going to go into, and I hate to say it because he's such a nice guy. After I met him, I feel like he kind of tricked me, but Infantino, it goes to his pocket. So I just do not really like how that plays out. Hopefully that's not the case because I don't like it.
All right.
And please remind me at some point, I have something to share. Do not let me forget. We could do it at the end of the episode. I could do it right now. It's up to you.
Go ahead, do it right now before we forget.
All right. This is somewhat breaking news. It is. But I know that everybody's been asking, wondering where and what is going on. Where is Raul Ruidíaz going? And what is going on with Raul Ruidíaz? He's still in Peru currently, but I was just told recently that Real Salt Lake is working to bring in Raul Ruidíaz. They are one of 2 MLS teams that are interested in him currently. It makes sense for Real Salt Lake. They currently have a lot of depth issues at that position. A couple of young players up top. Raul Ruidíaz could bring in some experience. A guy that probably will have a pretty big chip on his shoulder if he goes there. So I thought it was interesting that Real Salt Lake could be a possibility for Raul, and apparently there are conversations to bring him in to a team that could definitely use him, and that I feel would be a good fit for him. The other team apparently is Toronto that's interested in Raul Ruidíaz, but I feel like Real Salt Lake is not just more advanced in terms of at least talking to the player and trying to bring him in, but I feel like it's a better fit for him.
Because both teams are lacking in offensive firepower, and I think it makes sense. I mean, Toronto in and of itself, you look at them, and Robin Fraser, all accounts, fantastic gentleman, great representative of the sport. Toronto saying that Toronto is a dumpster fire might be insulting dumpsters at this point. And they had a rough start out of the blocks. I don't know if you want to get into any of that if you were Raul Ruidíaz and wanting to go to Toronto. RSL lacking in offense, thumped Seattle last weekend, obviously Seattle prepping for multiple competitions and stuff, but RSL puts goals on the board. They need offensive help. It makes sense to that lean for Ruidíaz to RSL.
So there you go. SDH finally got you a little something there for. Thankful to always bring me in, add that SDH family, baby, of course.
As always. All right. So let's get into this week and what's going on your mind. Quickly, I'll just go through the headlines from last week and lean into cliffhanger for this week. Philadelphia scoring goals. We don't know why. And we don't know how. Put 4 on San. Purple team put 4 on Toronto. Like I said, they're a dumpster fire. It's a mess. Nashville's also a mess coming out of the blocks. I think that people, if you're patient with BJ Callahan, right now they're easy to defend. We'll see how Callahan can adjust. San Jose continues to win. They beat Sporting. Colorado and Dallas had a 6-goal crazy. Portland beat Austin. LAFC beat NYC. Vancouver over LAG. Once again, we were discussing the problems that LAG is currently having. And Messi and friends on Sunday Night Soccer beat Houston at Hell in a Shell 4-1. So that brings us to this week, and we'll go through a couple of matches as we go here. Let's see if there's anything on the board, and obviously we'll let you discuss Atlanta and Red Bulls at the end of it all. But you look at things, you're the second match, meaning Seattle, the second match on the weekend, 4:45, so that probably means 4:55. So just before 2 o'clock local time, Saturday afternoon, you're a favorite at a plus 104, hosting LAFC, who's a plus 250, coming to Lumen, and a draw's a plus 238. What do you think about it with both of these teams coming out of CONCACAF and facing each other early Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, LAFC has a little bit more rest. They're coming in from beating the brakes off of Columbus. They have really simplified their game into a way that, man, I hate to admit it, but Cherundolo just seems to not make bad moves. I mean, it doesn't matter how many players are no longer there, and it doesn't matter how unattractive and at time a bit uninspired the soccer has been. The results have been there, man, and it doesn't matter which way you cut it. What pays the bills is getting wins. Yeah. So they had some dullness, but against Columbus, it all came running. So this is going to be a difficult game for Seattle. I really do believe that the 0-0 is a scoreline that is going to continue to linger in the players. There's no way that's what they were hoping out of it. Of course, that it isn't. They've had a couple of really bad results in league play. The 2-2 breaking heart 2-2 against Charlotte. Then you go and put a dud in RSL where nothing works for you, where you look disjointed and you lose that game. Now you play LAFC at home, man. It just I feel like this is one that Seattle really would need to get, but it's likely going to be a draw at home, because if there's something that Seattle has been able to do is continue to work their defense. It looked a lot better against Cruz Azul, because this is a team that has given up, I think, 6 goals in 5 games. So both CONCACAF and league play. So can they do that against LAFC team that likes to play against the ball, that's going to try to beat you off of counters? If Seattle can manage it well, I think this could be a draw, but I just don't see Seattle winning. So what's the draw line in this one for my juice boxes, by the way?
Plus 238.
Oh, yeah. I like that. 238. Seattle and LAFC, especially here, does tend to get pretty even. So, yeah, I like that draw for sure.
All right, so we'll just go ahead and go through the timeline, because there are a lot of other matches that are kind of like
Yeah.
And so I want to save a couple of Western matches for you at the bottom. We'll go ahead and light it up with Atlanta and Red Bulls. What do you think? Atlanta's a plus 114, draws a plus 256, and Red Bulls coming to town are a plus 2.
Yeah, man, look, I come off a disappointing result against Charlotte. I really thought that they were going to go out there and do magic, and Saha took the tricks away, and the bunny and the hat and all of that. New York Red Bulls has looked good defensively, offensively. They seem to be really functioning well. However, I think that at home, this Atlanta team is ready for a shake-off. I would actually just take the draw in this one if I could, but it's going to be a good game for Atlanta. I will say that, but I feel like this has all of the elements to be a draw, perhaps even a multiple goal draw, like a 2-2 situation in this one.
Okay. Let me go to some West Coast games and some teams. I want to focus on one matchup in particular. Since you mentioned Ruidíaz, let's talk about RSL. Sandy, Utah. San Diego FC comes to town. San Diego FC, we thought they were going to be one thing. Mikey Veras has fooled us all so far and has basically wagged his finger in our faces and said, ha, ha, ha. And San Diego going to RSL. RSL is a -109. Draws a +272. And San Diego on the road is a +259.
Ooh, that's some good numbers there. This is an interesting one, especially coming off of 0-0 against St. Louis, that maybe was more of a reality check away from the I don't know what you'd call it, almost that first game for a team that maybe gives you some extra emphasis, and you play lights out and you beat a LA Galaxy team that's proven not to be very good. RSL has not been good either. And just because they beat Seattle 2-0 does not mean that they've been good, because they haven't. They have their own struggles. I like the draw in this one as well. Boring, yes, I get it. But at RSL, a team that I feel like is going to be very careful in their trigger points, their moments to really get after it. They're also a team that likes to play very direct. Speaking of San Diego, I think this is going to be a bit of a boring matchup that ends up at a draw.
Okay, and then one team I wanted to have you talk about, San Jose. Right now, they're hosting Minnesota. They're the late game, so they're MLS After Dark on Saturday night. +131, hosting Minnesota United. Minnesota United +179. Your draws a +259. What version of San Jose do we get in that one? Do we get the one that's lights out with Chicho and Joseph sharing the ball, or do we get angry Bruce Arena going up against Mr. Quarter Zip pull down white T-shirt and Eric Ramsey?
Well, look, I like San Jose, man. I really do. I understand that they end up beating a Kansas City team that most don't have very high in their standings or power rankings, but Hernan Lopez gets sent off like in the 52nd, 53rd minute, and San Jose, in the most Bruce Arena-ish way, still able to manage a game, handle the load, keep an early lead, which again, these are things that sound very easy and fundamental, but not every team can do it, right? You score 2 early goals in the first half, and then you're able to hold on to it despite having fluctuation moments where maybe you shouldn't have been able to do so. So I like San Jose. They were not as dynamic and explosive as they were in that 4-0 win, which against RSL, obviously, where we all say, hey, tempt expectations, do not go that far into what that scoreline was. So in this one, they don't create as much opportunities, they're not as close to on goal, but they do have the experience both on the bench and on the field to manage the games. So in this one particularly, I feel like San Jose, regardless of not having Hernan Lopez on their side, I feel like they could take this one. I feel like they can take this one for sure. Minnesota, they have issues of their own. They're the better team. I'm not going to say that they aren't, but I have a little bit of a gut feeling that Bruce is going to do some Bruce things in this one and take the win. It's just a gut feeling, man. And look, I got beat up pretty badly on my for sure confident picks last week. Only 1 out of 3, because Sounders lost. That made me look really bad. San Diego couldn't really do it. And there was one other one that I just completely missed on. But I have a good feeling about this one. Take it for what it is. But I think San Jose could, maybe start making that Minnesota fan base that's so used to being crazy and with headaches because of this team. I feel like this could be one of those.
Cut the promo for me as you lob scorchers and hang out at Pulso Sports. What's
yes,
going on?
Sir. We're going to have a whole bunch of content that is still not up because it was a late night and I was unable to put it up. But we have conversations with a whole bunch of the Cruz Azul players. Kevin Mier specifically is a good one. Kevin Mier is the goalkeeper that, he's exciting. He's such a good goalkeeper. But we ask him about his potential call-ups with the Colombia national team here for the March matchups. He is in the bit of a controversy because so many people want him on, but he just hasn't been called up. And there is some talks about perhaps it being a specific agent in Colombia that's basically forcing him, hey, come over here. And if you come over here, you're going to be able to get on the national team. So we talked to him a little bit about those conversations with the Colombia national team. Of course, we're going to have voices from Brian Metzer, Vicente Sanchez, Cruz Azul head coach. So go ahead and check that out at Pulso Sports. But do not forget Monday morning, Lobbing Scorchers, 8 o'clock Pacific time. We're going to break down the entire weekend. We're going to talk Sounders. We're going to look ahead to Tuesday's matchup between Cruz Azul and Sounders at Estadio Olímpico en Ciudad de F. So make sure that you watch that. And then this Friday, meaning tomorrow, we're going to go ahead and check out what we learned this week with Jeremiah Oshan, where we'll just talk about the entire week of practice with the Sounders, what came about on Wednesday, of course, yesterday. So go ahead and check that out. There's going to be on the Nos Arietes and Sounder Out Hard podcast network.
What he said. As always, my friend, great to see you. Thanks for having your cups of coffee with us with the Juan Valdez mug right there in front of you. As always, love you, my friend. Have a safe weekend. We will catch up with you soon, okay?